he once told Stanhope at the Comedy Store, he's like, hey, man, people tell me I look like you. And Stanhope goes, yeah, well, people tell me I look like Booger from Revenge of the Nerds, and just walked away. And he's like, all right.
Live from the Willie Nelson and Friends Museum Showcase in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Music is Funny. Musicians talking to comedians about music and comedy. With your hosts, Raelyn Nelson and Jonathan Bright.
I'm still smoking, I'm so high, I keep toking, I'm drunk, but I'm still drinking too.
Welcome back to Music is Funny. I'm Raelyn Nelson.
And I'm Jonathan Bright from the Raelyn Nelson Band, back with another ridiculous and unnecessary intro.
A Jeff Danis. Hey.
What's up?
How's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. This is my buddy and my co-host, Jonathan Bright, JB.
Nice to meet you, man.
This is my buddy, Jeff.
What's up, man? I'm Jeff. Nice to meet you.
You guys are old friends now, I hear.
We're best friends.
Best friends. Still got to write some songs.
We got necklaces.
Yeah, and friendship bracelets. So thanks for doing this with us. We start off every podcast by asking, what's the first music you remember loving as a kid?
I think the first music I remember, like in general, was I'm a kid of the 80s, and my brother and I, we had this babysitter who was like super 80s. Her name was Sharon. She had big hair, wore like these big leather like boots. Like she was full 80s. And I remember we would we would sit on the stairs while she was like, she thought we were asleep, and we would watch her watch TV. And I remember she would watch MTV. And so we would watch, like, that's like the first time I remember being aware of music. And she would watch, like, I remember Thriller being like a big, like she'd watch like Michael Jackson videos and all that stuff. And just like, I remember that being like, okay, like music's a thing and it's kind of a big deal. And I remember that kind of being my entrance into music.
Yeah. And at that time you couldn't turn on MTV without seeing Thriller.
Yeah, I think, such a big deal. Like that video was like, it was crazy. It was almost like a movie. Like it was long.
Yeah. It's wild to think too. Back then they would have those huge, long premieres, a bunch of, they'd hype it all up to a certain time, when you had to tune in to the exact time. And it's funny how videos used to get that kind of push back then. And now, you throw it up on YouTube.
Yeah, now it seems to be a lot different. MTV is, it's not really music network anymore.
I got to say, Taylor Swift came pretty close on her 10-minute video.
I missed that one,
but it was the re-release of All Too Well. Y'all don't know about that?
Yeah, I didn't. I'm with JB. I didn't see that.
She did. She performed it on SNL. Yeah, the whole 10-minute song. No, nobody.
I'm surprised too, because I'm, a big fan.
Anyway, so was your mom and dad listening? Do you have a mom and dad?
I do have a mom and dad, like most people, I guess, in that regard. My dad was big into me. He had like, to this day, he has a record collection. And so I remember as a kid, he would play us records. I want to say, was there a Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson song? Am I completely making that up? Is there any sort of
Ebony and Ivory? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I remember. I remember him playing like.
That was Stevie Wonder, but they did do one. God, what was it? Because they had a video where Michael Jackson was dancing around Paul McCartney. And
I'll keep talking. I'll look it up.
Yeah, I remember him playing that. My dad was big into classic rock. So like, I remember even just like going in the car, he would put on the classic rock channel. Back then I thought it was like kind of lame, but I've come around to like, you turn into your parents. So now I'm like, oh, that music was pretty cool. And it was cool that he would play it for us.
Was Paul McCartney and who? Who were we looking at?
Michael Jackson.
Thank you.
This so far makes me seem like a huge Michael Jackson fan. I'm not.
Speed Demon, Smooth Criminal, In the Closet.
No, those are Mike in the Closet.
That's an R. Kelly song, isn't it?
Not just a song, a series.
A series
of epic videos.
Have you seen those?
I've seen parts. I've not seen the full. I did see the documentary on R. Kelly.
Well, it would take you a long time to watch the full, because we were on a band trip one time. We had like a 10-hour drive, and we didn't. How many of those? There were like 40 of these things made, and the story just gets crazier and crazier. And we killed, I don't know, maybe 3.5 hours driving just on R. Kelly's Trapped in the Closet,
and we didn't finish it.
I saw one of the crazy. So there's this girl on TikTok, and she did a video, and she was like, I think she said, "This is what it's like when your dad goes to prison with R. Kelly." And I was like, "It's not high school. Like, you don't go to like." It's a weird way to put it. But so she gets a phone call, and it's R. Kelly, and she's like, "Hey, what's up?" Like they start talking, and then she's like, kind of like, "All right, like, well, like, come on." And he just starts singing one of his songs, and people online are like, this dude's either like he needs the commissary that bad, or like these guys are fucking with him that hard that he's calling up inmates' kids and singing for him. I was like, what a crazy fall from grace.
Wow.
That
I have
is,
to look that
I
up.
think I saw that. I know what you're talking about.
I was like, wow, it's interesting, I guess, interesting way to get through your prison time.
Yeah,
Use your talents.
Yeah, there you go. He had a pretty good run. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had a great voice, or has a great voice.
Definitely, self-inflicted wounds, so you can't feel too bad for him.
empty bladder.
Paul McCartney.
Is that you speaking from experience on that?
Yeah.
Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson did a song together called "The Girl Is Mine," and it was this. The song was released as the first single of Thriller.
There you go.
They did it together.
Well, I guess the Thriller album was a big moment in my life, apparently.
Yeah, I was too young for Thriller. I just kind of know of it because of just being in the zeitgeist or whatever.
Yeah, you might.
Yeah, me too. I super
I'm
young.
so
as
young.
well.
I'm just super, super young.
Both of you guys are closeted Michael Jackson fans. I see what's going on here.
Okay, so your dad had a record collection. What about your mom? Was she into any music too?
My mom actually, at that time, she stopped working, like, I think around when I was born. I have an older brother and a younger sister. But she always taught aerobics. And so she would always be like going over her routines with this boombox in the house. So like she would always have like aerobics tunes going.
You are an 80s kid for sure.
It makes me sound like I'm like the most 80s of all time. Michael Jackson was playing. My mom's doing aerobics around the house.
So what did you get into in college, like college age, music wise? I mean, once you get through like the early years.
My longest love of music is hip hop.
Okay.
Not a big fan of what's out now. But like so I was around in the 90s when like hip hop and I believe was in its golden age. But since then I've really expanded I'm all over the place. So like
Who in the 90s? Who were you listening to?
Tribe Called Quest. I like the Roots, which is a little later. Outkast, kind of all over. Wu-Tang Clan, a little bit of everything. NWA earlier than that, but I got into it later because I wasn't like with it at the time they were coming out.
Yeah, and we've talked about that because I'm a little bit older than you guys. But when rap first started coming out, or hip hop, it's almost like every act that came out sounded completely different because there was no real history to like lean on and cop or anything. So all those records that were coming up, Public Enemy, the Beastie Boys, all that stuff, everything sounded completely fresh and different because they hadn't quite figured out how to make money on it. And now it gets watered down like everything else. It gets super.
Well, because it was so new. So it was like, like you said, it was like, Run DMC. Like everyone had this like very unique style. And then like everything kind of became like homogenized and now like stuff comes out now. I'm just like, there's some stuff I like now, but a lot of it I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah, and I've always wondered why nobody's taken the tack of like the Black Crowes and when they went back and basically just did the Rolling Stones many years later, like throwback. And there's really rap doesn't do that at all. You think there's not even crews anymore, like three guys up there rapping together. Yeah. But you'd think if somebody put on a Kangol hat and some fat laces and went back and just started doing it like the Fat Boys or something, it would, there would be a whole market for that. I could be wrong. So white dude from the suburbs telling you what would be popular in hip hop.
The Fat Boys, they were a good time.
I love the Fat Boys.
I remember
2 out of 3 are dead, ironically.
Yeah. They're
shocking. Diabetes.
The other one's losing weight. So I remember JB sending me Lottie Dottie, what was it, like a few years ago? And I was
the
like,
original with Dougie Fresh and Slick Rick.
And I was like, this is from a Snoop Dogg song or something. And you're like, no, this is the original thing.
You are not wrong, but originally it is not from a Snoop Dogg song.
And to your credit, you were like, I think I like the original better.
Oh yeah, I like this. But okay, have you heard of Prof?
No.
He's pretty good. He's a like hip hop guy that's putting some really cool stuff out right now. Check it out.
Yeah,
Is he from like the Nashville area, or is he just
he's from Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I only saw
Not a
him
big
on
scene of hip hop out of Minnesota that I'm aware of, at least.
Yeah, and he's doing fantastic, completely independent, and selling out theaters and stuff and putting out hits. Actually, that's some of the
cool
new.
story.
You probably would like it because it's some of the newer hip hop that I'm like, wow, actually, this guy's really good.
I'll have to check it out.
and he's kind of funny.
Very funny.
What's prof stand for, Professor?
I think so. It's
Yeah.
PROF.
I think his boys called him that when he was young. He's not that fond of the name, but it just kind of stuck. So who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe prof.
Yeah.
Profit.
Making profit. Like profit, I guess, like you see the future, or profit, like he's making tons of money, or both.
Yeah.
That's a good point. We'll have to have Prof on and ask him.
And ask him.
Just ask him. Thank you. That's all we need to know.
That's all we need to know.
Thank you. Just wanted a quick.
Right. And we're out. So how did you fuck music for a while? I always like to talk about comedy. How did you how early on were you a fan, and at what point did you decide maybe you would give it a shot?
Well, he was a middle child, so
Yeah, that's kind of I think my personality was kind of led me there, but I wasn't a huge fan of stand-up as a kid. I was aware. I remember watching. This is like everything I talk about is problematic. I remember watching Bill Cosby's special as a kid.
The theme going through this podcast.
I know, it's like R. Kelly, Bill Cosby, Michael Jackson, and I did an impression of one of his bits to my parents when I was super young, and they laughed. And it was like I remember like one of the first things I ever did that like my parents laughed at. So I guess that kind of made an impression on me. But I wasn't super big into stand-up as a kid.
Will you do it for us now?
It was his bit about, I think, one of his kids complaining about the other kid hitting him. And he was like, "Eat this, pop me on the behind." It was like, that's all I remember of it.
No, this is a long time ago. Did you do it in blackface, or did you just do the voice?
I did. Back then it was more acceptable. And my parents, they would love, that's what they loved about it. They were like, that you're dedicated to the bit. So we appreciate that about you. But I remember even at the Comedy Store, there was a night I was hosting there. I hosted the open mic there for years. And I like to kind of get into the crowd and fuck around a little bit. And there was this guy I saw, and I was like, seriously, like in my head, like I'm about to fuck with that guy. It was an old guy, gray hair, ponytail. And then somebody came up to me like, "Man, George Carlin's really loving you." And I was like, "What?" And like, "George Carlin." I'm like, "Where's George?" Like that guy with the ponytail. I was like, "Oh shit." I was about to fuck with him. I was so close. I had no idea it was him. And he came up. He's like, "Oh man, you're funny. Like, keep doing blah, blah, blah." But people were like, "Oh, that's awesome." And I was like, I wasn't really a fan of him as a kid. So like, it was cool, but it wasn't like this super huge moment of like, "Oh man." I got into it later, I guess, is after like in college, I kind of realized I wanted to do something in entertainment.
So what made you pick comedy if you're just thinking of entertainment? Like, did you have like multiple things? You're like, "Well, I'll try this, this, and this and see what sticks."
I was never like the stereotypical class clown. I kind of like, I cared about my grades, so I wouldn't go like full, like there was a line. I wouldn't like, wouldn't do like anything for the laugh, but I was always, I guess, considered funny. So I think that I realized I wanted to do something in comedy. I didn't know like if it was stand up or writing, which I do as well. And so, yeah, I was just like, I always kind of wanted to try it, and I tried it out, and I was like, all right, it seems like a good alley to pursue. And then I just kind of ended up in it.
What are you writing when you write? Are you writing comedy skits? Are you writing TV shows, movies? What are you?
I've done a little bit of everything. I've co-written like sketches that are online. Did some stuff with Ari Shaffir for Comedy Central Digital. I did a web series back in the day that was out. But right now I'm pitching an animated show.
Oh,
nice.
So wish me luck.
Like for kids or for adults?
Adults.
Yeah. Sweet.
And Michael Jackson and Bill Cosby.
Still waiting to get those name and likeness cleared right now.
That's my target audience.
Or they're a captive audience. So how did you start in Los Angeles?
I actually, after college, I was trying to intern for the Howard Stern show.
Yeah.
And so you need college credit. So I was like, I applied my junior year. I didn't get it. I reapplied my senior year. I got it. So I left myself a credit short. They let me walk in my graduation. And then like the day after I graduated, I went to school in Florida. I had to haul to New York. So I interned there that summer. And then that summer I actually did my first set in New York City. I did like a handful of performances there, like these shitty bringer shows. I remember Ed Helms was on one of the first shows I ever did. He was like showcasing. They're like,
wow,
this guy's trying to get the Daily Show. Here he is, Ed Helms. And then I went back after that. I'm from like the Boston area. I went and lived with my parents for like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months. I did a little bit of stand up in Boston, and then I moved to LA, and then I did it there.
So was the Howard show, I mean, I know you're probably going in going, this is going to be fucking amazing. Was it like that when you get there, it was like, well, this is just a fucking job now. You know, you get over the initial, wow, this is great. Or was it a cool, experience to go through top to bottom?
It was a little of both. It was weird. There was like it's probably like 10 of us or so. And I was a fan, but there were some people there who were like there just to do a gig. But it was cool. Like you could submit bits for the show, which I got some stuff on, which was cool. Some of it was cool, but like some of it was just like you're scanning his documents in his apartment building. He had an office, and you would just go in there, and he scans every piece of fan mail, or like it's categorized. It's like fan mail. There's like mail that's like, I hope you die, and stuff that's like threatening kids. That's like crazy. So he scans like I don't know if it's for evidence or he just wants it cataloged, but you scan every piece of mail that comes in there, which wasn't the coolest, but some of it was cool. Some of it was kind of tedious.
I would imagine some of those letters were spicy that came through that you'd run across.
Some of it were, yeah. Some of it was like, on this house, some of it like pictures of like women like lingerie. You're like, this is weird, man.
So you mentioned you moved back to Boston. Did you do comedy stand up when you got back to Boston?
I did, yeah.
Well, was it as gnarly as it was? Like we were talking to Nick DiPaolo and Fitzsimmons and those guys that were doing it kind of way back then. Is it still as hard nosed and hard edged, and people don't cut much slack as it used to be? Or when you went through?
I didn't get that impression. Like I was only doing this one place, but I didn't really get that vibe at all. But there was a show, like I forget if I was doing bringer shows where you have to bring people, or just like people wanted to see me because I was like, I knew people there. But I think my mom came to an early show, and I think my sister, and this dude, this is like a kind of a classic open mic story. This dude showed his dick. And I remember talking to my mom after, and she's like, I didn't see it. Like almost like she was lamenting the fact that, I don't know. I'm like, what were you doing? That you missed the guy's dick being whipped out. I don't know if they hustled him off stage, but the guy whipped his dick out, and I don't think it went well.
So was this Ari or Bobby Lee?
Yeah,
which one was it?
It was a young Ari Shaffir. He was touring various cities. I've seen Ari's balls more time than I think I've seen my own balls.
Yeah, I've heard it. They've been out there.
Yeah, Ari is JV's favorite.
It should have an Instagram page. His balls.
They're represented. He is an agent for his balls.
There you go.
He was on one podcast where he was literally taking a shit while he was on the podcast. I mean,
that's a common occurrence.
Yeah. Well, wait, were
you guys were on it because wasn't it Rushmore?
It was Rushmore podcast
and those guys when.
That was that. He did that there, and then one time at the Montreal Comedy Festival, O'Neill, who I do my podcast with, wasn't able to be there, and we had to record a podcast, and so I asked Art if he would fill in, and then he hazed me, and he was like, "Only if you stand in the bathroom while I take a shit." Which I stupidly did. And then I just didn't release the podcast. And to this day, people like release it. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it.
Wow. Some things you just can't unsee.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
So you go, what made you move to Los Angeles then if you were hanging out in Boston, just to like get more writing gigs and do more stand-up? Or was there an opportunity there that you went specifically for?
Yeah, for me, stand-up was always kind of the number two. Like writing, I saw as more of a career path. So I knew that if I wanted to write, that LA was the place to be. And I hated cold weather, and so it kind of just made sense.
Yeah. It's cold in California though. Every time I'm there, I'm cold.
It's not as cold as Boston.
That's
It's all
true.
relative for sure. So, when you got there, did you start immediately? I think you started working at the Comedy Store. Is that what you were saying?
I like, not everyone does it this way, but I open mic'd at the Comedy Store, and then if they like you, they hire you to work there. So pretty much almost all the employees are stand-up comics, which is a crazy, like back then it was a lot. Now it's more corporate. Then it was like a legit wild, wild west, insane asylum. Like the shit I saw and the shit I experienced was like, you wouldn't believe. And so then you showcase, it was, the owner was Pauly Shore's mother, Mitzi Shore.
Right.
You would just showcase for her. If you were like, they bring in showcasers and the employees showcase for her, and it was hell because she would just freeze a room. Like she's like this small woman, but notoriously like intimidating. And if she hated a comic showcasing for her, she'd be like, get him off stage loud so the comic could hear it. Like brutal shit of like dream crushing. So then I eventually got passed, and then kind of been doing that ever since.
Did she do that to you?
No, but she did walk by me, and I think, I don't know if we interacted or not, but the town coordinator is like, she's going to fire you because you have a beard. And I was like, what? And he's like, she's going to fire you because you have facial hair. And in my mind, I'm like, that's not legal. He's like, you're not really fired. He's like, but when she's around, like, it would be good if you just kind of made yourself scarce. I was like, what? Like there was shit like that, like happened there all the time. Like that was common.
Wow. So who did you have? What are the fellow comics you were working with? What was the staff when you were there?
So like the Comedy Store is kind of like high school classes. So like the class, like a little before me is Ari Shaffir, Steve Renazizi, Bobby Lee's probably like one above them. Mm-hmm. And those are all guys who like came through there, who worked there. Like, but there are always people who are coming in from the outside of like, who are already established, and then they just showcase. But like the true Comedy Store, in my mind, people are like the people who like come up through there, who get like pretty much get hazed and deal with all this shit.
So who were your co-workers?
Yeah, so like Ari and those guys were always fucking with us. And so you're always like working there, you were always on guard. Like Ari, Ryan O'Neal, and myself, and it was pretty much me and O'Neal versus Ari. He would hit us in the balls, like, but like secret, like surprise you. So one time I was on stage, and in the original room at the Comedy Store, there's a curtain behind you, but the back bar leads up to it. There's a stairway that like no one knows about. Mm-hmm. So I'm on stage, and all of a sudden I feel a hand. He got behind me, like dropped to a knee, and tried to hit me in the balls. Thank God he hit like the middle of my jeans and didn't quite get me. But I was like, Jesus. And it got out of hand because I think O'Neal woke up from a nap, like covering his balls because he had a dream, and we had to call a ceasefire. It got too crazy.
So did anybody ever get fired? It sounds like it was almost anything goes.
People would get fired, but it was notorious. Like they bring them back like a month later, depending on like if it was a real offense or not. But like when I was there was a lot of drugs. Like there was a dude they hired who was like 400 pounds, and we would have to change the sign in the front on a ladder on Sunset Boulevard. So you're like 15 feet in the air on a ladder that no one's watching the bottom of. And like every drunk idiot, homeless people, like people would rattle it, and you'd be like, what the fuck? Like, you're like, you fall, you're pretty fucked. And, this 400-pound guy, like the manager's like, yeah, he can't change the sign. And I'm like, why is he doing this job? So you have to go do a portion of his job because he couldn't do it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. What other crazy things happened there when you were there? Back
then, I think people like when you say all this, I think like I want to make it clear that this stuff no longer goes on there for better or worse. But back then it was just like Mitzi her health was ailing. So it was like, there was really no one in charge. So like, and she wasn't there a lot. So it was just kind of insanity. There were dudes. There was this group of dudes that everyone called the Scum Bunch. It was like 3 or 4 guys.
Okay.
And more than once, they had gangbangs in the Comedy Store bathrooms. Like some guy's wife, I think, got in a fight with his wife. She comes out, and they just all were having sex with this lady in the women's bathroom.
Okay.
It happened that was like a more than one time occurrence too.
So the Scum Bunch was a group of comedians.
Yes, but like low level. They weren't right. Funny.
Yeah. Ari Shaffir, Bobby Lee. No,
no, it was no one you would know.
Do you remember hanging out in the parking lot in the back? Do you still get to go do that?
Yeah, I mean, I worked the lot, so which was hell. It's like have you ever been there to the Comedy Store?
Yeah, so I've been just a couple of times, and we hung out in the parking lot.
Okay.
Excuse me. I went with Ryan Sickler, and then the last time we went, Dave Chappelle was there. Met Dave Chappelle.
He's there a lot.
He thinks I'm a comedian, and
you are.
Yeah, if Dave Chappelle thinks it, then it must be true.
He didn't hear any bits. He just saw you hanging out with the crowd, but still, yeah.
Yeah, he looked over at us. He's like, "You guys comedians?" And he said, "I'm Dave Chappelle," and I said, "I'm Raelyn." So see, I didn't say no, I'm not.
Did you say yes, I am, or did you
nod?
No,
I just said I'm Raelyn.
Okay.
That's
fine.
So,
there.
But the way they have it set up back there now, like where people smoke weed and stuff, is pretty cool. And
like the back alley. Yeah, back then you used to park cars like where that is, where you smoked in the back.
Okay.
But that lot, like you saw how it's small. It's a small area, and so like working that lot was a very high stress job. Because these dudes bring in nice cars. It's in my mind, I'm like, there's a hotel parking lot right next door. Like, go park your nice car there. But you have to jam in like it's like Tetris. You have to make all these crazy maneuvers. Yeah. So it was it could be scary working that lot. I mean, I hang out there a little bit, but I've hung out there so much over the years that nowadays I'm just kind of in and out.
You're a dad now. I
have kids, and I've spent so much time there. That place can suck your time away faster than like anywhere I've ever been. You can be like, "Fuck, I've been here for 5 hours and I haven't really done anything to speak of for it."
Yeah, I would imagine back in the day when you first started too, and when you were working there, you guys probably just hung out there too, maybe on off days or whatever, go see your buddies or whatever.
Or perform. Yeah, so like you were there like 5 nights a week, and like I remember back then, and even now, like you get so jaded. Where like they're like, "Oh, Dave Chappelle's performing," and you're just like, see it. Like just you see so much comedy, you're just like, I don't want to watch. I'm good. Right.
Yeah.
Do you ever wreck any cars while you're parking them, or did any of your buddies ever trash a really nice car?
The scariest thing that had happened to me is right next door. I said there's a hotel and there's a ramp. And when it's busy, you park cars on the ramp on the side. And so I was parking. Andrew Dice Clay was like, he would fuck with you, like, but he wouldn't say he was fucking with you, but he was fucking with you. So he would take his keys, like the key fob with like the lock and the unlock. He would hold it like an inch from my face, and he'd be like, "This is lock. This is unlock. Do you get it?" And they're like, "Yeah, I think I get it." And he would walk away. And so he had this beater Bronco, and I had it. I was parking it on the ramp. And I put it in park, and I thought I pulled the emergency brake. I did not pull the emergency brake. Shit. And I just started going backwards on the ramp, and like when my feet were off the gas and brake. And so I was just searching with my foot for the brake, like panicked, because I'm right next to a rail. And so I'm just going like, fuck, and just going backwards. And Sunset Boulevard's behind me. So if I go all the way down, like I'm fucked. So I get the brake. I had managed to not hit anything. And I looked down, like every comic was down. No one saw it. I couldn't believe it. I just parked the car and I was like shaking. I was like, holy shit.
Got lucky.
Another time I crashed Pauly Shore's car, who was, pretty much the boss, into a great comic who's no longer with us, Brody Stevens' car. Right. Pauly has a huge Escalade. He had an Escalade truck. And Eddie Griffin, at the time, to show you what the Comedy Store was like back then, was banned. Like Mitzi loved banning people. Like, you're banned. He couldn't perform, but he would come in and just hang out all the time. So it's like, why is he here? Like, and obviously he has like, not the best feelings towards the place. So he would come in with like 5 cars, and I'd be like, "Eddie, I can only like have your car." And he would just start like berating me of like, "My son's here, this guy." And I'm like, "Dude, I don't like, they can park somewhere else. Like, you can park here." So, and I don't think he was even driving. I think he may have had a DUI or whatever, but so he was like screaming at me like, come on, man. Like, I gotta go. And it was raining. And I was like, all right. So I had to move like 15 cars to get his one car out. Oh. And as I kept pulling Paulie's car in and out, like onto Sunset and back in. And so on the last time coming back in, Brody Stevens had parked his car on like the very edge, like there's a wall, like where you're not really supposed to park. And I like went to look for him. I couldn't find him. So I was like, all right, I'll try to pull in. And I just hear like I'm like, oh fuck. And there's a front bar there and everyone at the front bar turned. And all I could do was I just had to keep driving straight side all the way up. And I was like, oh shit. So I went to the manager's office and I was like, the manager was best friends with Paulie from like growing up. And I was like, hey, if you're going to fire me, like, could you do it now? Cause it's raining. Like, I don't really want to be here anyway. Like, and I was like, oh, and could you tell Paulie, like, I think I'll take it better from you. And like, right then Paulie walked in behind me and the manager, this is the impression everyone does of him. He's like, bro, don't you have something to tell Paulie? And I was like, fuck, man. So I told him and he's like, what happened, bro? And I told him, he's like, you got to be careful, right? And I was like, yeah, I guess. And then they blamed it on Brody pretty much. And I felt so bad because Brody was such a nice guy. And he's like, that's my mother's car. You crashed it. Like, and for a while he held that against me, but we repaired it. We repaired the relationship and the car.
There you go. So how did you hook up with O'Neill? I mean, not hook up, but
no fucking.
Well, we first hooked up at a party that Michael Jackson was playing.
Bill Cosby themed party with Michael Jackson.
An aerobics
music.
class, yeah.
So before I performed at the Comedy Store, I just kind of was hanging around there to be like, let me see like what's let me see if I'm up to snuff. Like watch the open mic, see what's going on. And then so I did this like other show where it was at a sushi bar and you had to pay like $2 to perform. And I remember I went and I was like, and it's legitimately like me and 4 other comics. And that was the whole audience. And so I saw O'Neill was there and I was like, oh, I've seen that guy at the Comedy Store. And I was like, after I left there, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can even do this. Like that was terrible. So then I saw him at the Comedy Store. I was like, hey, I saw you. Weren't you at like that, like the show at so-and-so? And he was like, no. And I was like, what? In my mind, I was like, I 100% knew he was there. And later he told me, he's like, everyone at the Comedy Store at the open mic was so crazy at that time that like, I just thought you were some crazy guy. So I just said, no, like I wasn't there. So he lied to me. And then as time went on, we just kind of like got to talk and became friends. And then we started like writing together and that's how it happened.
So it's interesting, like doing your podcast. I don't know how much is actually written down, but I'm sure the premises and stuff, it seems like a pretty cool way you guys have stumbled upon to be able to, kind of a version of stand-up comedy, a version of writing and all that kind of, the podcast seemed to bring both of those sides together. It's got to feel pretty good to be able to do both of those in the same thing.
It's, podcasting is interesting because it does provide you kind of an outlet like stand up, but it's like, different because it's pretty much all off the top of your head. Right. And me and him have like over the years, we've done so much writing together that like we can finish each other's sentences. Like we know each other that well. So it's weird. Yeah, it is a weird, I think it's a cool format. I think it's definitely helped stand up in terms of people coming out to see it because stand up was huge in the 80s. And it was like when I showed up at the Comedy Store in the early 2000s, it was super down. Like there was no one at the shows there, like no one.
Nobody was there watching or anything because like the main room's filled up.
That bubble had burst and it was super dead. And now it's back.
When it was dead, how did they react? Because we've throughout the years encountered this. You show up to play somewhere and there's literally maybe 2 people there, and you're kind of looking around like, oh, do we have to do this? Going through like, what is a comedy thing if nobody shows up? Or like, did they call them until a certain amount of people showed up, or were they nice that nobody showed up?
Back then, I remember even when I got passed, which I forget when it was probably like mid, like 2008 or something around there, or 7. So they would have a rule where they had to have 4 people in the audience to start like the shows during the week.
Oh, wow.
And so 2 people would show up and they would just be sitting there. And I think they're like looking around of like, what the fuck is this? Like, is this gonna be a show? And then if they left, then you're back to zero. But like performing in front of 4 people is terrible. Or now it's like not even like it's sold out instantly. So it's crazy how different then is to now.
Yeah.
It's also, I was thinking,
it's crowded
about
there now.
What's strange about comedy and music, like comedy definitely has dips where it's hugely popular, not so much, hugely popular, not so much. Music has genres that are hugely popular and not so much, but there's never been an era of people like, I'm just not really into music for the next 5 years. Fuck music. It's weird.
Yeah, it's different. I think, live in terms of music, I think people are always going to want to go see live shows and we're always going to like music. I don't know why comedy does kind of ebb and flow. But right now it's huge.
Booming.
It's flowing for sure.
And I think podcast has a little bit to do with that because we feel like we know you guys, just from listening to you every week and hearing your take on everything that's happening in the world. And it's like you feel like friends, so you want to go see your friends when they come to town. I don't see how it could just go back to
I can't.
No boom. Yeah. I think it's just,
I don't know. Who knows?
I mean, anything's possible, but you know what I mean?
Well, even like the Comedy Store, like, Joe Rogan had one of the early podcasts. So it's like he was a guy who came up from there. So he's talking about the Comedy Store. Mark Maron starts talking about the Comedy Store. Guys like Joey Diaz, Ari Shaffir, like so the Comedy Store kind of became this like this thing where people are like, oh shit, I want to go check it out. Like all these guys I like are there and come, hang out there. So like it became this. Not that it wasn't not that before, but people kind of came back into like, oh, I want to go check that place out.
Yeah. I wonder if it's changed. It seems like it's changed this way in music that the old path, going back to like Bill Hicks and those guys that I used to see come through Zanies here, seems like a comic would go out and slug it out on the road, kind of build a following, then get a special, things like that. But I don't even know are there clubs that will allow young comics that they've never heard of, give them a shot anymore just to come in and maybe build? Because I would imagine there were old clubs that you could go to as a young comic and the owner would go, wow, I really like this guy. I'm going to give him a shot on a Friday.
I think that's changed a little bit. I think it was more so that like back then of like, but like now you can work your way up to it where you'll feature for somebody, you'll get in with the clubs and like move your way up. But also with like the internet and everyone putting their clips online, like you don't necessarily have to travel all around if you don't want.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking is there's a whole different path. And I don't know that the old path works in it because you're going to go broke on the road for nobody, or you could sit and do your bits and put them out on the internet from the comfort of your home.
For thousands.
And then you already have a built-in crowd when you go out because you're popular on the internet.
I mean, and there are dudes who get big podcasting first and then they get into stand-up or their stand-up's big and they get into podcast. So it's like, there's all these different components where back then it was just stand up, but now it can be stressful though, where it's like a new technology comes along and it's like, all right, now you have to do that for free. Like now you have to do TikTok, now you have to do Twitter. Yes. You have to be constantly like, and you're like, I'm not getting paid to do this shit. Like, why am I doing so many? I'm sure music is similar where like you have to put it out, you have to do this. And you're like, fuck, like I want to get paid. You have to have
a presence everywhere, you're online.
Which is stressful. You're like, I don't want to 24/7.
Yeah, and that's a good point. You have to keep putting content out. Like way back in the day, when you first play in a band, you get a record, it goes out to the radio. Your job is to go play or maybe do an interview, and that's it. And now you're expected to constantly promote and do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's different skill sets of like, wait, like this isn't just about music. Like I didn't realize that to be like, know all about business, about promotion, about marketing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is way off
Analytics.
topic. Yeah, this is way off topic, but I was under the influence and thinking about this the other day. You're into wrestling, right? Or
I was as a kid, yeah.
Yeah, me too. And I don't know anything about it now, but I was thinking how much the wrestling business has followed the music business because it started off with all these regional like labels, which are like wrestling spots. Then the big major label, Vince McMahon, comes along and just grabs them all up into the one big major label, and then it hits its peak, and then now it's sort of I don't know. There's a golden era of it. Because what era did you?
Do y'all remember when Tugboat saved Hulk Hogan from the Thunder guy?
Wow,
Thunder guy. I remember Tugboat and Hogan's friendship. Who's the Thunder guy?
Wait, there was like Hogan had gotten beat up by like earthquake or something, or like tornado.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, earthquake. Yeah, that makes sense. I do remember
earthquake.
that.
And
Tugboat was he was the
Tugboat
era
came
where
in.
like they were still kind of fat Jack. Like he was kind of fat, but he had like huge arms.
Yeah.
The roids like didn't fully weren't fully it wasn't the full like muscle. Like now they're all like super jacked. Back then, like in the 80s, which is what like
Oh yeah.
some of those guys were kind of fat, which was I thought was good. It's a good
For
change
sure.
of pace.
Well, there was that transition because you had like the King Harley race and all those old school guys rolling in, and then you get Mr. Perfect and then the Ultimate Warrior and all those guys that finally got on the juice, and it was like completely it was fun to watch the fat guy come back out.
They said Harley Race. Wrestling to me, like a lot of the old school stories are great. It's because wrestling and stand up are kind of similar. Like a lot of wrestlers come into the comedy store. I think like a lot of substance abuse, depression, like a lot of time on the road. So it's a similar lifestyle. And so a lot of them do come in, but I like Harley Race. I've heard stories of like the guy always would have a gun on him. And if like you pissed him off, I think they came into, I think he was from St. Louis or that's where he came up. And the WWF went in there to do a show and he was pissed. And he came in there like and flashed a gun around being like, don't fucking come to my city. Like this is my area. And people were like, oh shit. Like, all right, dude.
Sounds like me.
Yeah.
That's how you in Nashville, if someone comes in, what you do, I've heard.
Some chick from Minnesota come in, she pulls the gun out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you proud.
But it was you. I remember here anyway for a couple of years, 1 out of every 4 Saturdays, they would preempt Saturday Night Live with Saturday Night Main Event, and it was just wrestling on one of the big NBC, I guess. And
Tennessee was a big wrestling area.
I grew up on
Jerry
that.
the King Lawler.
All the Memphis wrestling too. I used to watch
all those guys. Yeah, I mean, I didn't like know about it then. Like through podcasting, like even wrestling has gone through a podcasting revolution. So it's like you hear all these stories of like all these guys, which is to me, it's interesting.
Oh,
What's the obsession with comedians and some sort of fighting, like jujitsu or karate or
Well, that was
wrestling.
Joe Rogan kind of ushered that in, especially at the Comedy Store. And so guys who were like friendly with even Ari, like got into jujitsu, which was if you know Ari or knew him then, it was funny because he's like the least
he's a Jew.
aggressive person in the world. And he'd be like, I'm doing jujitsu now. I got a guy in an armbar, whatever. You're like, okay.
I
then that kind of ushered it in. But wrestling,
she referred to it as jujitsu. I gotta give her credit for Ari.
JEW.
she hit the Jew on her.
Yeah.
I thought that was just the Nashville in her.
The twang.
But a lot of I don't know why a lot of stand-ups like wrestling. I don't know if it's like the storytelling aspect of it or just kind of this larger than life performance, but a lot of stand-ups do either grew up liking it or do like it now. So like I've had a lot of wrestling talk with comics.
Do you wrestle yourself or did you?
I like wrestling around with dudes, but just in my free time.
Yeah.
It's something I do in my garage.
Yeah.
I want to wrestle with my boys. I wonder if they would wrestle with me.
That's disgusting.
I think
They're
wrestling with
15.
your mom would be an odd scene.
Yeah. Coming from a son, that's not cool.
You have teenagers too, right?
Yeah, they're teenagers. You don't think they would want to?
You missed the boat. If like, you can wrestle when they're like 6 years old, but
Right.
Yeah.
God forbid one gets a boner.
Oh God. Okay. Yeah,
I'm
we're
just
done.
saying.
We're done.
God forbid you get a boner. That'd be even harder to explain.
Okay, moving on. So when is the first time you remember hearing about my grandpa? My grandpa's Willie Nelson. I don't know if you know, but
We're good friends. I call him Papa Wheelie.
yeah. So
when is the first time? I don't know a lot of his music, but I know him like just as like kind of a cultural icon. I can't remember like a moment when he came in when Willie Nelson came into my life, but it just kind of always has been there, and I've always I feel like I know who he was. Even I'm from the Northeast, but he was, he's just that big.
Yeah,
it is. It's kind of like Elvis.
Great answer.
I don't have any memory, although Elvis was always around. The idea of Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I have no clue when or how. Like the first moment of like, hey man, look at that guy with the braid. Seems like a cool dude.
Seems awfully laid
back.
back.
Then, like people, like musicians, like wouldn't he be on like just random, like they would appear on like random shows and stuff. So maybe something like that where I just saw him. Was like, oh, like dude's. Was he ever on the Muppets?
Yep.
For sure.
That's actually a answer we get a lot. Yeah, we get
maybe
that a lot.
That could have been then, as I was a big Muppet guy, big Jim Henson fan.
I love the Muppets.
Are you still into the Muppets?
Not as much, but I do. I do like anything Jim Henson, like Fraggle Rock was a big thing for me as a kid. Trying to get my daughter into Muppet Babies, but like the new one, but she didn't really take the bait, which was disappointing.
What shows is she excuse me, what shows does she watch?
Unfortunately, I don't know who made the mistake. I'm gonna say it was not me because I don't make mistakes. She's gotten into YouTube, which is fucking so bad. Just the shit she watches is just such garbage. And I tell her to her face, I'm like, this is garbage. This is terrible. You're watching garbage. And she watches like this show she watches these families who are like YouTube families that are so bad. And a part of me, I'm like, should I do this? Because they're so unentertaining. And like, but then I'm like, I'm not going to be a fucking YouTube dad. Like, it's nothing worse than like some guy pushing his kids on YouTube. For like, the other day, she's watching this guy who was like a faux hawk with fucking barbell earrings in each ear, 2 daughters, and they have like a sweet house. He's clearly has a lot of money. I don't know if it's from YouTube, but and it's just like, hey, we're gonna play around with some inflatable pool toys. It's like it's so fucking bad. And she'll quote these people. She'll be like, like Caleb and Aubrey, and I'm like, don't talk to me about these idiots. Fuck Caleb and Aubrey. They're 2 kids from Oklahoma who she watches.
A few years ago, I got into the idea of getting an RV and moving me and my kids into an RV. So I started researching it. And on YouTube, there's some families that are RV families, right? And I got sucked into one of these shows.
Now, are you saying RV in replacement for trailer, double wide?
No, like a
Well, you can move up from the single wide to the double wide.
What's the one, like
Winnebago?
Yes, thank you.
Gotcha.
Did you want to drive around or you wanted to just stay in one area?
Both. I just had this great idea.
Where would they go to school? Or you were just like, fuck school, it's over.
Oh, yeah, my kids do school online anyway. They're weird little kids. Yeah.
Got it. So they're learning nothing.
Yeah. It doesn't, education doesn't matter.
They're watching families in Oklahoma.
Yeah. But I got sucked into these RV people. And then do you remember when they came to the campsite, that was closed down to me? I'm like, oh my God.
We were at practice. She's like, you have no idea. These people are at the campsite right down from where I live. I'm like, the YouTube, RV family? And she's like, yes.
I'm going. I got to go meet them. I got to go pick their brains. What's weird with my daughter is I'm like, Disney and all these places are spending millions of dollars to make kids content. I think that's why, right now, there's a weird push and pull of what do we do? Because my daughter would rather watch these idiot families who are spending nothing, and so I think entertainment's what are we doing wrong? How do we keep up with this?
So, do you think the Teletubbies? I don't know if you're familiar, would still hit with the youngsters? Because there was nothing to that show except a creepy baby son and giggling, and then.
I was a little. I think that was a little after my time, but I do remember it. How fucking creepy it was.
I was old when it came out, but I remember how transfixed my friends' kids would sit there and just stare at it. And I'm like, it felt like they were giving them
we should
messages, but I should bring it back.
Yeah, maybe we should all create the Wonka Bacalais, and they.
I don't even know what that means.
I just made it up.
You guys can do music. Ari can show his balls.
That's right. We got something
for
here.
Kids.
It's an R-rated kids show.
Only cool kids can watch.
Kids are smoking.
I'm trying to think if there's any shows now. There are these huge. There's just so much content that it's hard to have one breakout show. My daughter would just turn on Netflix and watch a show she's never seen before, and then the next day watch another show she's never seen. So it's hard to have these big breakout shows.
And you wonder, you're a writer. How hard would it be to try and write? Are there any really great small kids shows 3 years old that they stare? Or are they just a limited choices? Because how do you know what's going to land with infants? You know what I mean? How do you write for people that can't even talk yet? There's got to be some kind of formula.
I would guess most of them have kids. Just you kind of know what makes your kids laugh or what entertains them. But a lot of it back in the day, a lot of those people had background as in early childhood development. Mr. Rogers, I think, studied that. He actually went to my college.
Oh yeah,
different time, a little before me. I remember I had a music class, and I had to go see this orchestra perform as part of the class. And I went, and his wife was playing piano, I believe. And I looked up, and Mr. Rogers was just sitting in the front row.
Oh.
And it was weird because the episodes, I think he had stopped doing the episodes. And so they were playing old episodes, and seeing him, I was like, oh, whoa, he's like super old now. Like, it was a sad moment for me. Really seeing him in the flesh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, hey, have you ever heard of that YouTube family on an RV?
Check him out.
All right, Jeff, thanks so much for doing with us. We'll let you go. Thank you
Thank you guys. This was fun.
Yeah, man, it was nice.
I like seeing your grandpa behind you. What's he drinking? Whiskey?
That's tequila.
He drinks tequila? I wouldn't guess him as a tequila man.
He really only drinks wine, if he drinks.
Now, or back in the day?
Well, just a few years ago, he would have like a glass of wine, after the show.
I'm guessing.
Does he have his own wine? Is he one of those guys who like now has a vineyard?
He has his own weed, man. Come on.
He has his own weed, and he has his own.
Does he have his weed? What's it called?
Willie's Reserve.
Never heard of it. I'm not a big weed guy.
No?
No. I would bug out. I would smoke and I'd get super paranoid. And people like, oh, you got to try this, you got to do that. I'm like, doesn't
you got to smoke through that. You just smoke through
power
it.
through.
Power through.
Yeah, it wasn't, I don't know. I was just like, why am I powering through? Like, why am I trying so hard?
That's a good point.
Just not a mix.
Are you a drinker?
I was. I kind of just don't do much of anything now. I'm just a lame dad.
Okay.
A hangover is like the older I got, I just couldn't deal with it. It would take like 2 days recovery. I'm like, this doesn't seem like it's worth it.
Yeah.
Are you guys big drinkers?
We drink. I wouldn't say big. It's relative. Not compared to Bert or,
I drink pretty much every day, but I drink those session IPAs, so that has just a little bit of alcohol in it. And because I just like to a little bit, so.
Who is a big drinker compared to Bert?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
We did, O'Neill and I did the Birdcast a bunch of times. And like, I was out of drinking shape, but we would go on there and Bert brings you to a new level that you didn't know you had. I think we drank, between me and O'Neill, we drank 21 beers in like a 3-hour podcast.
No.
That one took me like a couple of days to kind of come back.
That's pretty strong. Although
I remember like standing up, like we were sitting like pretty much the whole time. And that's when you stand up and you're like, whoa, like I'm at a level where I didn't think I was at.
It'd be interesting to watch him and Stanhope drink together, because I heard Shane Gillis talking about trying to keep up with Doug Stanhope when he hung out with him out at his place, and said it was a bad idea.
We were, O'Neill and I, sorry, I know you dismissed me, but I'm going to fight.
No, I just want to let you go if you need to.
Oh, I'm good. I'll tell you when I'm ready to go.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
O'Neill and I, we did the All Things Comedy, had a festival in Phoenix, and Stanhope would come because he lives in Arizona, even though I think he lives far from there. But he would just put on drinking displays like I had never seen. And so we were like at this, like they had like a come up to the pool area for a mixer, like all the comics. And so we're like, let's go check it out. And so he comes up there, and I think forget how we started like talking to him, but O'Neill kind of looks like Stanhope, and a lot of people say that to him. And he once told Stanhope at the Comedy Store, he's like, hey man, people tell me I look like you. And Stanhope goes, yeah, well, people tell me I look like Booger from Revenge of the Nerds, and just walked away. And he's like, all right. So we started talking to him, and next thing I know, he's like, let's all go in the pool. And it was like not the hottest day, and it was like there were like families around, and he was wasted. And we were like, all right. And he's like, let's do it naked. And we were like, it was during the day, by the way, too. Sun's out. And we're like, yeah, I don't know if naked's the best bet. So we ended up just jumping in the pool in our boxers with Doug Stanhope, middle of the day time.
That sounds about right.
That's cool. When my Doug Stanhope story is we were playing in Bulverde, Texas, just a couple of months ago. And before that, we had texted him a picture of, he was our first guest on Music is Funny. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, nice. I get to call him my friend now because we text. And so we sent him a picture of us watching his new special, in the van. And so we play a show, and throughout the whole show, he called us like 4 or 5 times, and it just we couldn't answer the phone, obviously, because we were doing the show. But I would
Raelyn picks up her phone and goes, Doug Stanhope's calling us. I'm like, answer it. Put him up to the microphone. She's like, I can't do that. It was a family affair we were playing, and that's probably not the best idea.
Yeah. I was so excited he was calling me. And
why was he calling you so much? Was it an emergency?
He wants to put together a show in Bisbee or something, where the band can come out there.
Oh, okay.
So we were just trying to figure out how to make that happen. Or, you know,
Crazy
but we were
that
all
he's
really
like
drunk.
made that small town like his hub, like a town where like it's tiny and like seems like remote. I don't know much about it, but
Very remote. He put
seems like
he
he
put his
set up
address out
camp there.
online.
Yeah, if you need his address, it's online. Just Google it.
Yeah.
You get to
Oh, like you can find like
no, he
people go and
announces
show
it.
up.
He announces it to like on our podcast. He's like, I'm like, well, I don't want to send it. He's like, no, the address for you. Google Doug Stanhope's address. It comes up. But yeah, the people like do the Hunter S. Thompson thing to him. I think like every now and then some crazies will wander up. He'll invite him in, have a drink. You know,
It's
But it's so far out there that
Ari does that. Ari will like hang out with like fans. Like he went to a Yankees game. Like, dude, it seems risky. Like you just don't know who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
which is funny because when we were talking to Doug the first time, he's like, his main rule is never go out with fans after a show to a bar because you're gonna get stuck with something. But I guess as long as he's at home base, he feels in
He's
control.
like, invite him to your house. That's better. But how's that better? You can just throw him out.
Yeah.
I would much rather be out because then you can be like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom, just ditch out. But at home, what are you going to do?
Exactly.
Did he start putting on his pajamas? He's like, well, it's getting late. I got to go to sleep.
Fuck you guys, I gotta go take a shower.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's cool. We'll stay here. We'll be here.
We'll be here when you're
Fuck
done.
out. I don't think he has security. He's just like a regular dude.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's great. Yeah, some comics I think are too accessible. For me, I wouldn't like people I don't know in my house.
Well, he also doesn't have young children either.
yeah, you gotta protect.
That's true.
And
I don't know if that's probably for the best. Imagine
probably,
him with
yeah. I'm sure he thinks it's for the best too.
kids. Him with kids would be quite quite the scene. A lot of comics. Is this like this in music? Like my daughter's 4 and my son's like 8 months, but some comics will come up to me and they'll ask me about kids, like almost like an alien who's never been to, they're like, so like, what's it like? Like what, like, just like, like the concept is so foreign to them. And like, do you get that in music or is that different?
With about kids?
I have no
Having kids, like, do people see you as a weirdo or
No.
just kind of whatever?
Now you get some, not like a weirdo, but you get like,
just like-
how do you manage with that?
Oh,
You have
yeah.
3 young kids and you're out playing.
Well,
that kind
yeah,
of stuff.
yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Because
And-
like the music and it's a lifestyle. So it's like,
Yeah.
so some
Yeah.
people are like, what? Like,
Yeah, or when people tell me, "Oh, I didn't want to do that because I had kids," I'm like, "Oh, so you're saying I'm a bad mom because I'm doing it?" Or like, "What is that? What are you saying?"
is this
there?"
about you doing heroin?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're like, whatever. It doesn't affect my kids.
Yeah. That's like I
Wasn't
always say.
breastfeeding at the time.
It's like I always say. It's not that I don't it's not that I don't like kids. I just love abortions.
Oh man, too soon.
Oh, that's right.
Too topical. All right, I gotta go now. Have you always gone by JB, by the way?
Pretty much, yeah.
My initials are JD, which you would think would lend itself to that because of Jack Daniels, but no one ever really called me that. Maybe I'll start now that I've talked to you.
I'll call you JD.
And you got a shorter
right.
first name. I got Jonathan Bright is my name, so it's just
You're why are you so long on the front, so short on the back?
exactly. It's like a reverse mullet of names.
You go by Jonathan or you go by John?
People call him Jonathan.
I never have gone by John.
Johnny,
Really?
though.
People
Johnny.
always tried to call me Jeffrey. I've always been a Jeff, even to my parents.
I was a Johnny when I was a little kid, and to cousins, and then from school ages it was Jonathan. I was never a John.
Really? Did you resent guys who went by John? You're like, look at that guy. So cool.
Yeah,
John.
pretty much.
Yeah.
No, I always resent. My middle name's Alan. And I resented the ALAN instead of it's. Come on, man, it's spelled ALLEN. So there's a
My dad's name is Alan and he's EN, but I remember as a kid, like on forms, like not like I was so young I didn't know how to spell it, and he would get pissed if I went ALAN. He thought
Yeah, see, there's a rift between us Allens.
Why?
And Christ, it's only my middle name. You know, it's not even my first name, but I feel it deeply, like your father. Yeah, it's bullshit, man. Come on. It's like
Ellen.
Yeah, it's some silly
Do
pre-millennial.
you hate your name? Did you have a period where you wish you were another name?
Nah, not really. I bet you did. Though.
I did though. Yeah.
I still hate your name.
Yeah.
Yeah, your name is just Southern trash.
It is. And she's the only white girl named Raelyn ever, I think. Well, except for
Except the other
name.
Raelyn
Yeah.
with the fake name. Yeah. There's a
Your name, I don't know why it makes me think of Jolene, the famous song. I don't know
because most people call me Raelyn. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why. Makes me think of Jolene.
That was beautiful.
Jack White, good cover of that song.
Yeah.
White Stripes.
Honestly, we had a parody singing Raelyn to that tune, but it like ended up with something about jizz
on my
your
chin. Yeah.
So
Do your kids like that one?
Yeah.
We
worked that one up in
the
the
melody
fan.
was wrong though. Remember?
Yeah,
We're
I finished it and I'm like, wait.
How did it go? Wait, you
That's
have to
not
sing
even
it.
right at all.
Raelyn.
What's the chorus?
I can't help but notice.
Oh yeah, I can't help but notice you got jizz upon your chin.
And then I was like, wait, that song doesn't even go like that. Sorry.
Is that originally Dolly Parton?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she wrote it about.
You ever interacted with her?
Well, I was a kid when I met her. It wasn't memorable to me at all. So not when it would be fucking awesome.
This is the second time you've called Dolly Parton not memorable. I just want to point that out.
No, like I don't. Yeah.
Whatever.
It was. It's like I didn't realize who she was and that it was as cool as it was because I was just.
Have you been to Dollywood? Is that a thing there?
Yeah. I take my kids to Dollywood.
Is it good?
Yes, it's a lot of fun.
See,
It's like
she
Six
just like hangs
Flags.
out there sometimes. I think like just walks around or did.
Just
I don't know
made
for
that
now.
shit up. You just made that up.
No, it's what I've heard. I mean, I'm just a northerner
Who did
guy.
you hear that from? That is like somewhere in California. You
Buddy of
weirdo
mine
that
from
is.
Connecticut.
People always talking about Dollywood. Dollywood talk.
There's a bunch. Yeah, everybody's talking about
Everybody's
Dollywood. It's fascinating, man. I think there's a whole podcast.
She had a big part in the COVID vaccine. She I think either gave money, she had some sort of weird part in that.
Oh,
She was paying off people's bills that worked at Dollywood for 2 years or something. She was,
She basically just did it for the people of the town because it was a poor town and she wanted to give the people their jobs. She pays for their education.
That's what
any
it was.
employee.
When they shut down Dollywood because of the COVID, she just paid
That's what it
everybody for 2 years up front or something.
She from there, that town?
Yeah. Pigeon Forge, Severe.
She's like a rapper. She's supporting hundreds of people.
Exactly. And you know what else?
It's like the
She's
redneck Compton there.
She's also a rapper because she single-handedly brought back the Mexican pizza from at Taco Bell.
That's her?
She was upset about that it wasn't there. And it's just in an interview, they asked her what she ate on the road. And she's like, I eat tacos from Taco Bell. I like the soft ones because it's easier to eat soft tacos when you're on the road instead of hard ones because they fall everywhere. Because they fall and crumble everywhere. She's like, and then I really like that Mexican pizza, but they haven't brought that back. I don't know why they took it away and blah, blah, blah. And so then now it started a thing and she brought the Mexican pizza back.
I also heard that she twerks at her shows. Is that true?
At Dollywood too, when she's walking around.
It's one of the rides.
Yeah, if you're in a long line for a roller coaster, she'll just walk by and twerk it up for you just to keep
the big roller coaster is called the twerker.
She shakes her tits at you.
The motorboat and the twerker.
How old is she? Is she older or younger than Papa Willie?
She's probably a little younger.
She's
than
younger,
Papa
I bet.
Willie.
I bet
think
she's
she
late
might be.
70s, I would imagine.
I'll look it up.
I don't think she's quite hit 80 yet.
I'll keep talking.
Is he the elder statesman of country? Is there anyone older than him?
I think he's the oldest one left.
Yeah. I think Keith was one left.
And most of his contemporaries died earlier on because they didn't keep playing. He just kept playing the entirety of his career.
Oh, yeah.
Heavy is the head that wears the bandana. It's a tough role for him.
It really is.
Yeah. I want him to live forever.
So have you wait to wear on your forehead?
She's 76 years old. So, yeah, my grandpa's 89.
Oh, shit. He's got her by a lot.
Yeah.
Did he ever make love to Dolly Parton back in the day?
They had to have, right? He definitely motorboated those tits.
You would think so.
They're fake, right? That's
yes.
Everything's fake. The hair, it's a wig.
But she wanted it. She mimicked her look after the hooker in town when she was growing up. She thought she looked hot, and everybody else thought that hooker was trash. Which who thinks hookers are trash? But
that sucks though, because that hooker probably died broke. Or meanwhile, Dolly stole her essence. And
it's occupational appropriation, man.
She should have given a little bit of cash of hey, thanks.
Exactly.
Thanks for the big tits, and that lady's tits were probably natural too.
Probably not as perky, but I'm sure they were quite just as big.
Didn't you see Dolly in town when you were a kid?
She used to live down the street from. I mean, it's built up tremendously there, but she has a house down there, and yeah, I saw her sort of shortish light brown hair. Still gigantic.
She's tiny, isn't she? She's 5 feet tall.
Did you motorboat her?
No, I didn't really I think my parents are the one that told me.
Your dad's I motorboated her. You trick or treat at her house, she puts the candy between the tits, and then whenever bends over, whatever falls into your.
They're bobbing for apples. The apples are in it.
It's weird that she was so synonymous with her tits. Like I can't think of any other celebrity who's like.
Well, Kim Kardashian and her ass, and maybe J-Lo and her ass.
I guess, but I'm talking just straight tits.
Just tits.
Old tits are more like an 80s, not like
70s.
No one's really known for tits anymore.
It's a shame.
And asses are just
You should bring back tits, right,
back
man?
tits, right? And ass isn't.
Why don't you bring back tits?
I will bring them back.
Bring them back.
You guys should do a Timberlake. We're bringing tits back, like bringing sexy back.
Yeah, he can rip off my shirt in a song like he did for Janet Jackson. Oh, full circle with the Jacksons now.
It's true.
And
Jackson
you know that
5.
that was definitely planned. She had something over her nipple, and it was
Dude, that
heavy
sun
naked by
thing.
the end of this song. What?
I've never seen a nipple thing like that before. That
You've never seen a nipple?
Nipple jewelry. She had like bedazzled nips, whatever
Yeah.
that thing was. That
She had
sun
a-
thing.
Mm-hmm. She had a little thingy.
It's kind of a-
Timberlake, he got off scot-free on that, where she took all the heat.
Yeah, I don't know.
Timberlake's above the law, kind of. He also got out like with all the Britney stuff, kind of avoided
Yeah.
any flack.
That's
Is
true.
he a Nashville guy? Is he from there?
They have a
Memphis.
place in, he's from Memphis, but they have a place in the Fork is what we call it. It's kind of like 45 minutes south of Nashville.
He's got like a bazillion acres out in the middle of some high-priced country now.
Leaper's Fork is what it's called, but everybody here calls it the Fork.
Everybody's moving out of the city and getting out there, so people with money got there quickly and bought up a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Does he split? It's weird to split time between LA and the Fork,
Not when you're Justin Timberlake.
I guess. Where his kids just go to different schools? Or are they online with your kids?
Yeah. Yeah, they come over and hang out and do school.
His kids
together.
love wrestling with their mom, actually.
Okay.
And it's the size of the boners on those kids.
Yeah, you should see some of the moves they're
They
doing.
definitely take after their pops.
I
So
wrestle
I've
with
heard.
my daughter, but I think eventually it's gonna be like, all right, this is run its course.
Later on today, you're like, okay, I can't wrestle with you anymore. It's just
Yeah, like it's hit a point. But I think I'm trying to like instill some sort of inner power in her, like to eventually get guys off of her, because it seems to be where we're at these days.
Wrestle with her for sure. I wrestled with my stepdad, and that sounds
That's not good. That's a red flag. Hearing that sentence, I'm like, oh,
I think we know the clip for this episode. Wrestling with stepdad.
I think I've seen that clip online.
He's a little late to that party, Raelyn. You got to come up with another idea.
Pornhub. Oh my god!
Was your stepdad a good wrestler? I'll take the bait.
I would beg him to fight with me.
He was quick. He got done quick, but it was still good. I learned a lot.
I would beg him to
Is
fight
he still
with me.
alive?
Yes, he's still alive. It's my
You still
dad.
wrestle with him every now and
He's
then.
actually in jail now for wrestling.
He was the Andy Kaufman of wrestling young girls. It wasn't adult women, it was girls.
Don, I'm so sorry.
How old were you when you were wrestling him?
Like 9, 10, 11, 12, like.
Wow, lasted a while.
lot of them,
You got a nice,
yeah.
long wrestling
wanted-
relationship.
But I think he had that idea too of like being able to use your strength, do it before you have to, so that you know what you're capable of. And
You're like, he's like, I wanted to teach you to fight me off so you can fight other people off. Was your mom like, look at whatever his name is?
I was
Just
not-
look at my kid.
She told Raelyn, if you ever talk about you wrestling your stepfather.
listen,
Did he wrestle your sister? Because you mentioned you have a sister.
Oh, I wonder if they wrestled because
Isn't her name like Anna B or something?
yeah, good job, Anna B. Yeah.
Oh, that is her name. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Pulled that out of nowhere.
Yeah, good job.
How do you spell that?
ANNA and then BEA. 2 words.
Interesting.
Like Mary Lou.
Interesting. I thought BEE. I don't know why.
Yeah, people think that, but it's short for Beatrice.
Oh, she's
Well,
Anna
actually-
Beatrice.
Right. So she's Anna Beatrice, but she goes by Anna. My mom's always
Is that
called her
one
Anna
name
B.
or 2 names?
2 names.
2 names, but you combine them into one because you're Hicks.
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yep. That's what we do.
Yeah, Raelyn is one name.
Yeah, I don't know why she went with 1 name with mine and then 2 with hers.
Are you the oldest?
Yep.
She made a mistake, and she's like, I gotta
Yeah.
separate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good point.
She actually, well, we've worked through all that. We no need to bring all that up again. But no, my stepdad never molested me. I've only been molested in a church van.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
That's
a camp
cool.
counselor.
Yeah, and who among us hasn't had that happen to him? You know?
Yeah, that's
I
a
saw
normal
this
thing.
crazy YouTube clip. Someone sent me. This pastor in Indiana is like addressing his congregation, and he's like, he starts talking about, he's like, I committed adultery 20 years ago, and like, I need forgiveness and blah, blah, blah. And so he does this like 10-minute speech, and people like, he's like, I'm stepping down. And then all of a sudden someone stands up and like storms the stage, and she grabs the mic and she's like, yeah, what you failed to acknowledge is that I was 16. It was the girl that he in front of the whole fucking thing. And so like, and then like people, you hear like a gap, and she goes on this like long stories of like, you first had sex with me in your office, like on the floor, like long detail, like there's like old people in this, like this is like a Christian. I was like, oh shit.
I believe it.
Then his son like storms the stage, and she starts like addressing it. She's like, no, your father did this, blah, blah, blah. Then the guy comes back and he starts like talking to her. And then the guy takes the mic, and I was shocked. He's like, that did happen. I was like, oh shit, that guy he's like, some of what she said wasn't true, but that did happen. And then the video ends where they do a prayer for the guy. And like a lot of the congregants go up and like put their arm, like huddle around. I'm like, that's fucking crazy. Wow.
Man, that's
like to be that into your church. It
sounds like my childhood pastor. That sounds like exactly what happened. The pastor that I grew up with, he is now living in LA as a woman, and he's doing pornography for a living. And he was a married man with 3 kids.
So he finally saw the light.
Yeah, he's living his best life now.
He definitely saw it. He's not
Kristen Rainbow Wolf is his new name.
I'll have to look up her work.
Yeah.
You can't say his name. You can't.
Did I say her? Did I say his?
I think
you can't misgender her.
Misgender her.
Even if they did molest people.
Person with penis.
Yes,
person with vagina.
The Southern Baptist Convention is releasing a bunch of hidden documents I just saw recently of sexual activity in the church.
Yeah. Yeah, the other pastor fucked a lady in the church too who was married.
It's about time that the rest of the religions caught up with Catholicism. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So pastors can have wives, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They just can't bang children.
It seems like, well, I think it's frowned upon. I don't know if it's
that's true. Clearly, from that video, you still can. Yeah.
Did you see
that video? Man, I'm Jewish, and nothing remotely like that, and to my knowledge, happened at my temple growing up.
We would do Passover dinner because my mom was obsessed with Jesus, and Jesus was a Jew, so she wanted to do that. So we would do Passover dinner, and I had to do like the Baruch Atah Adonai Elohim Melech Haolam and all that thing.
That's weird. Why I would not picture that going well in Nashville.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it's like no, but it's because we love Jesus so much. That
my mom was obsessed with Jesus.
I think it was early. I mean, Nashville's changed completely, but when I was a kid, I think it's just people had never seen or understood that there was Jewish people. They had no idea they were even amongst us.
No, I didn't really know.
I bet now
it's just you never saw anybody. It's like
I bet now there's a lot of Jews in Nashville with like all the entertainment, like all of LA living there now, and like I'm sure a lot of music production people are Jewish.
Oh, for sure.
I didn't understand that it was a thing until I was probably like 27. That was my thing
when I was 18 till I realized is there supposed to be a thing? I don't understand.
About Jews? Yeah, what's going on?
Jewish
until you met Ari, you're like, I've never.
I was like, oh, now I know why people hate him.
He's definitely not a good poster child. What's funny about him is that he grew up like an Orthodox Jew, which I did not. I grew up like real low level. And he's gone so far away from it, but it's funny because 1, his name is Ari, so like he can't really go that far. And 2, like look at his face, like there's no.
You're not running from
Ari
that.
David.
No, it's like he's a Jew whether he wants to be or not.
Oh man,
I'm gonna go wrestle with his mom after this.
Okay, so one last thing, you got to go check out that video of the pastor who's yelling at the witches in his church.
Yelling at witches.
Yeah, he's like, we know you're witches, and we ain't gonna take that. And he starts going off on them. It's great. I don't want to ruin the delivery.
I grew up not far from Salem, Massachusetts, so I know witchcraft.
Yeah. Are you?
We used to go on field. We used to go on field trips to Salem to like this like old witch museum.
What was in there?
A bunch of bitches and witches, people on broomsticks. I don't know, just like old artifacts and what have you. Nothing that like you'd be interested in as a kid.
Yeah.
Salem High, their mascot for their like we would play them in basketball. They're the Salem Witches, and their court is like a broomstick and like I think like
that's
a moon.
Cool. Yeah,
it's like the whole town is like is kind of claimed a moment in history that I guess wasn't great for them, and like made it their own.
Yeah, they feel better about it, I guess. So.
You guys should go play Salem Mass. I guess Halloween there is like I've never been, but it's like crazy. Like people go there from like all over the country.
Is there truth to the theory that that during that era, I read this somewhere, that part of the reason people were thinking they were witches because there was some kind of mold, something going through the bread supply, and people. That's
I think tripping. They do. That's a theory of like, and women, were like hallucinating, and they didn't know how to deal with it, and they were like, "This is against God." But then other people think like it was a form of slut shaming if like women were like sleeping around. There was that.
And didn't they drown them?
They bring it back.
Yes, they did.
They were drowning them, right? Not burning them.
They would say, they'd tie him up. I think both, but they would tie him up and put him in water. And they'd be like, if she floats, not a witch. If she sinks, she's a witch. Sure enough, they were all witches.
Might have just been some dudes that were ahead of the curve and had some good thoughts. I'm saying, get rid of the few.
Or just like, hey, I knocked this lady up. I gotta find a way to get rid of her.
Look at the problems that poor preacher's having now. Having to face a congregation. Nobody in Salem was facing that back then. I'm just saying.
When that guy made that speech, he had the driest mouth. Like it was driving me crazy. You just heard that dry mouth sound on the mic. I think he was nervous. It was driving me crazy.
Oh,
I was like, that's second to his rape. In the morning.
Oh my God!
Is that an RV behind you? Is that what I'm looking at?
It's a replica of a tour bus. It's just
is that what motivated you to try to live out of an RV?
Yeah, yeah. I always wanted a tour bus, so I was like,
how big would this RV be?
Like a tour bus.
So pretty big.
Yeah, that was the plan at the time.
Were your kids down for it, or were they like, that sucks?
They're the ones who are like, we think we need more privacy than that. So
I was gonna say, like, if you're teenage, like, it's not great.
No, it's not going to be good.
And I even talked to them when we were moving. I'm like, either I have to get a job or we need to make some money on the house because we're not touring right now. There's not a lot of money coming in, And so they were like, yeah, I'd rather you stay home and not get a job. So we moved. I try to include them in all the decisions. So when I was talking about the RV, at first they were like, yeah, that's cool. And then they're like, I start talking about it. We start looking at pictures.
Plus, there's no room for wrestling.
No room for wrestling.
Yeah, where's your stepdad? What's he gonna do? Get on the roof?
Right. What are you gonna do on Christmas now?
He could dress up as Santa and wrestle when we land down the stairs.
You have to wrestle outside.
Are your kids musicians?
Yes, the boys play piano, and one of them plays the drums a little bit. I really wish he would drum really well so he could drum with us. Hopefully, maybe.
Seems like a good gimmick. Are they twins?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good gimmick for like a band.
I keep telling them, but they don't want their faces online anywhere or any, like they'll make videos and stuff, but they'll always cover their faces. I don't know what.
Oh, they're the two.
They look like me.
Burkas, right?
Yeah.
How do they cover them? They blur their faces?
They wear masks and stuff. Not like the.
Why do they want to be so anonymous?
I don't know.
Maybe you should find out. I was just saying.
Yeah, what have they done?
What have you guys
What
done?
is buried in the backyard?
So they're 15. They look like actual teenagers now. And they wanted to make a video where they're walking around with the gun, like the pellet gun that looks like a 9mm outside in our woods. I'm like, no.
At night.
Yeah. Like we don't live in this. We live in a county away from Davidson County, like right into the city. So we live in people will shoot you if they think you are walking around their woods with a gun. You cannot do that.
Dressed in all black with hoods on.
Yeah. All black with. I'll send you the video they made. It's pretty great. So what did they end up doing? They
were stabbing each other.
Yeah, they were stabbing each other instead of shooting.
Sounds like they may need some professional help.
Maybe homeschool was
a pretty funny video. They're they have murderous ideas. And they're acting it out. It's pretty cool. Right.
Maybe we'll just edit all this out, right? No, I'm kidding.
There's a kid in my town, different time then, but he decided to, similar story, carry around like a replica gun. It wasn't like, I don't think it was even like a pellet gun, but a replica gun. And he was like walking towards a liquor store and a cop I grew up in like a very like suburban town. So they didn't deal with shit like this, but I think they pulled guns on him, and like he's lucky he didn't get shot.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I was just like messing around. They're like, yeah, probably not the best.
Walking around with a pistol. Yeah. Just goofing off, just having some fun.
Blowing some steam off, officer.
This is my fake gun. Like, what are you
Just doing a bit, dude.
Back off, Fuzz.
Jesus, you guys don't allow us to do anything in this town.
It's funny. It's funny. Watch. Yeah.
Meanwhile, anyone who's grew up in an inner city, especially someone who's black, is like, yeah, that's not would not be the situation with us.
For sure.
Yeah. All right.
I like to end it on a nice racial.
We didn't touch on race.
Thought-provoking piece.
Thought we finally got around to race at the end. We can leave that open.
Raelyn's stepfather is black. It's.
I got to go wrestle my black stepdad, everyone.
Black Santa.
What if that is you? Like, I got to go, guys. I got to go wrestle my stepdad. Like, wait, that's your excuse to leave.
Start using that for everything.
That's going to be the new sign off to the podcast. Got to go wrestle my stepdad.
And I'm out.
You should do a song called "Wrestling My Stepdad."
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that'd be good imagery. Do you guys write together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
do you
JB
do it in
writes all the
person, or
time.
do you send back and forth?
Both, but mostly just him at his house, me at my house, and we'll just send ideas over the phone.
Does one of you come up with the music and the other the lyrics, or you both do both?
Both.
Somebody she'll
Not
usually
like
have an idea.
Elton John and what's that other guy's name?
Elton John.
His songwriter.
Bernie.
No, he doesn't write his own songs. Bernie something.
Bernie Taupin writes the lyrics.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he never wrote any of his songs. I read Elton John's book. Do you know he was married to a lady?
No.
I didn't know that.
Back in the day. You guys are looking at me like I'm just making all this up.
No, it's because the screen is freezing right now for some reason.
And everything you say sounds like.
You guys were frozen there for a minute, unless you just weren't saying anything, faking me out.
There, we're back now. Yeah.
We're back.
That's why we were looking so
That
stupid.
was really weird. I was talking to you guys. I just told you about somebody I killed, and you didn't respond.
That's why we were looking so stupidly, because you had frozen on our end. And we're just
You guys were like, it was a weird moment. I really divulged something to you guys, and you guys weren't saying anything to me. You guys aren't Elton John fans, I take it.
I actually am.
You are?
Yeah.
What's your favorite song?
Saturday Night's all right for fighting. I like about 4 songs, to be honest with you.
You're a Tiny Dancer guy.
Yeah, I'm not really into ballads, so I shouldn't say I'm a fan. I'm a respectful.
You're Benny and the Jets.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I like Benny.
Jonathan and the Jets.
I see the fucking syllables, man. It's too
Oh,
many
yeah,
syllables.
you'll piss him off because he's originally a drummer, so like phrasing and everything has to be a certain way. So usually he changes all my songs to
Yeah.
fit his phrasing.
Man, you're a phrase queen.
I really am.
Nothing to be upset about. You want to wrestle?
Can you put on a gray wig and
Start playing Jingle Bells and come down the stairs.
Love it.
Can you put on a stained white undershirt and hold a Budweiser?
Get a Coors
Just put a
Light.
cigarette in your mouth. You had to dodge the lit end while you're wrestling.
I love this stepdad look.
Oh my gosh.
Stepdad Barbie. That's what she would look like. Okay, well, the patrons in the museum are getting like.
Yeah, it's funny because
All right.
people are.
All right, well, I gotta go, guys. I gotta go wrestle my stepmom.
Oh God!
Oh,
All right,
man.
Jeff.
Dude, thanks for doing this. This is a blast.
Thank you guys for having me. This was fun.
Yeah,
If I'm ever in Nashville, I'm gonna come in there. I'm gonna sit between you guys,
for sure.
Okay,
or lay
good.
across both of your laps.
We'll all 3 wrestle.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
You know, we'll film that for sure.
I'm 6'3". I'm not fucking around over here.
You should start a wrestling thing for comedians, like the goddamn comedy jam that Josh Adamers did.
Yeah.
You should do a wrestling thing.
Hey, Bill Burr, I want to wrestle you.
Yeah, why not? It'd be great.
Bill's taking
Yeah.
a bump from you in the middle of the ring.
You're like, fuck you.
It's gonna be cool, Bill. I'm gonna pile drive you at the end, and everybody's gonna
It's gonna be
go
so
crazy.
sweet. I'm gonna fucking throw you through a table. I have 0 experience doing it, but it's gonna be awesome.
It'd
Trust
be
me.
great.
I'm a big fan.
Oh my God, we could talk to you forever. All right, man.
See you guys.
Thanks,
Come to
dude.
Nashville, and then maybe we'll do this
All
again.
right.
All right.
Bye, Papa Willie. I love you.
Jeff Danis is my favorite comedian.
Yeah, man, I love that dude. Now we just got to get O'Neill on.
Yeah, he's coming to Nashville. He said he would do it. We'll see if he follows through on his word.
We'll see. Anyway, check out Raelyn on the Danish and O'Neill podcast.
Yes.
Go back. And that being said, enjoy your groceries.
Don't be an asshole.
I know your mama's name.
Enjoy your cigarette.